All right, now that is the landmark ruling that will be given today by the International Criminal Court. But let's take a look at just what Rule 68 is, and this is what is in contention at the ICC. And Rule 68 is one of the ICC rules and procedures of evidence, and it refers specifically to the prior use of recorded testimony or the introduction of previous recanted testimony of witnesses. Now, in the case facing Deputy President William Ruto, let's just take a look at how the issue of recanted evidence comes into play. Now, the prosecution at the beginning of this case initially had 29 witnesses, and the last witness, however, refused to testify. But out of these 29 witnesses, 9 of them did not take the stand, and so that left 20 more witnesses, 19 actually, with one refusing to testify. Now, of those who testified, they were declared hostile after recanting their initial statements. Now, out of those who did take the stand, a specific 5 of them who had initially given evidence, putting Deputy President William Ruto at the core of planning meetings ahead of the 2007-2008 post-election violence. And the main agenda of these meetings, according to that evidence that was given prior, was to buy weapons that would be used in the post-election violence. But after a while, these witnesses came back and recanted their evidence. So Prosecutor Fatou Bensouda said that the witnesses had been corrupt and had to come back and recant their evidence. Allegations that Fatou Bensouda is now putting on Deputy President William Ruto. Now, Fatou Bensouda alleged that the interference from the government took place in the recanting of the evidence by these 5 specific witnesses, and so she asked for permission to use this recanted evidence, and that's where Rule 68 comes in. She wants to invoke that, but Ruto and Sang appealed the decision by the trial chamber. Now, of course, Ruto and his lawyer Karim Khan went ahead to appeal that information. But let's move on just to see why does the court want to use Rule 68 of recanted evidence, and has the court used this rule before? Now, there was a Lubanga case in December 2010. Lubanga is a Congolese warlord, was charged on several crimes, I beg your pardon, including ethnic deaths in the country. Now, Lubanga was the first case to be referred to the ICC and The Hague earlier in 2006. But on December 13th, 2010, the use of Rule 68, the court admitted a prior testimony of 2 witnesses to further convict the case against Lubanga. There had been several appeals by Lubanga and his defense case, arguing that the prosecution did not have the right evidence. There was no information of where the prosecution got their evidence. The prosecution allegedly saying that they retrieved the evidence from the United Nations. Now, Lubanga's defense team, I beg your pardon, went ahead and appealed these cases, saying that Lubanga should be let free because of failure of evidence in the case. But in March 2012, Lubanga was eventually convicted after the court allowed the use of prior recanted testimony. So as we see, this has been used before. Lubanga was accused of recruiting and using child soldiers, many of them under the age of 15 years. And in March 2012, he was convicted and is now serving a 14-year sentence at the ICC. So these are the proceedings so far. But let's just take a look at what will be at play when this rule is used against Deputy President William Ruto.